So Saturday, Errol Spence Jr. in his return to the ring defeated Danny Garcia by unanimous decision to retain his WBC and IBF welterweight championships. You know what, Nate? I'll start with you. I mean, congratulations to Spence for coming back. I mean, he suffered that he was through that insane car accident. I'm glad that he's back and
Yeah.
100% healthy. I'm glad that he shook the cobwebs off and he got back in that ring. But let's start with before I give my analysis on the game. Let's go to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what we predicted. They would go to distance and Spence would win by unanimous decision. That's exactly what both of us said. And obviously I couldn't watch the fight because I couldn't pay for it on pay-per-view, but I did watch the highlights. There was a lot. I noticed a lot of headshots, which is good. Good defense on both sides. A lot of counter punches too, more specifically on Garcia's end. But overall, it was a great fight. Both fighters held their own. I couldn't see a knockout on either side. And with that said, for Errol Spence, he landed 187 punches out of the 707 he threw, which is 26.4%. And Danny Garcia landed 117 punches out of the 700 that he threw, which was 16.7%. So I mean, it was a good fight. Obviously, it came out to exactly how we said it would be. A lot of counter punches, a lot of headshots too. Lot of I was surprised there wasn't a lot of jabs. There was quite a few of them, but there wasn't as many as I seen with the counter punches and headshots. Good defense on both sides, and I think the defense is really what held them to not get knocked out. Overall, congratulations to Errol Spence on his win. Uh, Again, good. Both fighters put up a really good fight, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll go to this. I think Spence did a lot of jabbing, and the reason why is because I seen a very passive Errol Spence. I didn't see the aggressive Errol Spence. I seen a very passive Errol Spence, and what I mean by that is he started off setting everything up with a jab, and for the first round, that's all it was keeping his distance with a jab. And the reason why is because he knows Danny Garcia is such a great counterpuncher that when you give him a jab, there's not really anything to counter. You're keeping your distance away from him, and what's he going to counter? A jab? He can't. But I noticed also when Errol Spence started coming into him and started trying to land big punches or combos, I noticed that Danny Garcia would come and start counter punching him. And Danny Garcia, don't he did a good job counter punching on him. And the one thing that shocked me about Danny Garcia was he threw 700 punches. He don't throw a lot of punches, Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia's the two fights that he lost, he threw 400 punches, basically like 400 and 430 punches. He threw 700 punches in this fight. And it just came down to Errol Spence having a better percentage. By 8%, he had 100. Errol Spence had 187 opposed to Danny Garcia's 117. But Danny Garcia is such a tough guy. He's a guy I really couldn't see getting knocked out. I could see him losing, but I couldn't see him getting knocked out. And Errol Spence had to shake up the cobwebs. I noticed that what he would do is he start by jabbing, and then he end up landing a lot of strong body shots to Danny Garcia. And what I noticed from Danny Garcia is every single time Errol Spence was coming too close for him, Danny Garcia would wait for him to start swinging, knowing that he could take that punch. And Danny Garcia would end up counter punching of his own. But the problem was Danny Garcia didn't have a lot of juice those punches, or not enough to stun Errol Spence. And the other thing I found out about Danny Garcia was he was a little off balance a couple of times. Like I remember he was trying to punch Errol Spence and he fell. He fell, but obviously because Errol Spence didn't punch him, it wasn't a knockdown. And I also remember Errol Spence rocking him, and Danny Garcia kind of like went off balance a little bit. But Errol Spence was too far away to come at him. But one thing I'll say that Danny Garcia did good was he would go on the ropes and he wouldn't give Errol Spence time to start landing those combinations on the ropes because we know how Errol Spence is. When the guy gets on the ropes, Errol Spence just starts wailing on him and he shows no mercy. But Danny Garcia did a good job getting away from the ropes to make sure that Errol Spence wouldn't start landing punches on him. But I mean, the problem with Danny Garcia was Errol Spence just kept his distance. Kept his distance for most of the fight. He had good defense, Errol Spence. Um, it's not that Danny Garcia did a bad job. It was just he didn't really.
Enough.
I can't say he wasn't aggressive because he did throw 700 punches, but he didn't make more of an effort to come in on Errol Spence. You know what I'm saying? And Errol Spence, I mean, good win to him, but he was too passive in my opinion. You know what I'm saying?
Wasn't the same that we seen him
Right.
as.
He did throw 707 punches, which is what he usually does. But the amount of punches that he was throwing and the types of punches, they weren't They weren't power punches. They weren't really clicking. It was nothing really that was rocking Garcia besides probably that one punch. And I mean, if he's gonna have a chance against Crawford, he's got to do better. He's got to be more aggressive. You know what I'm saying? Now, go into that. Spence won. Crawford won. Make this fight happen. We're all looking for. Actually, Crawford was at the fight. They showed Crawford in the ring. They showed Crawford in the crowd looking at the fight. Crawford is a top-ranked boxer. Errol Spence is a PBC boxer. So they thought it was kind of weird that Crawford was at that fight, paying tickets to a PBC concert, not concert, paying tickets to the opposite, the rivals. But you know what that shows me? It shows me that Crawford really wants to fight him, despite what Crawford says about not needing to fight him because his legacy is already intact. It shows me that he really wants to fight him because if that was the case, if you didn't really need to fight Spence, right? And you weren't really like, not that you weren't interested in it, but you just would like, if he's not going to accept, I'm going to move on. Why are you at his fight? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why are you going to his fight if you're not really like interested in, fighting him if he's just going to decline? Crawford knows that there's going to be a future fight between those two, hopefully in their prime, not past their prime like it was with Pacquiao and Mayweather, but there will be a future fight within those two, and he's taking a good look at him. But I mean, congrats to Errol Spence on the win. He's 27-0 now. Danny Garcia goes to 36-3. But Danny Garcia, in my opinion, is still a very elite boxer. There's other boxers in this division that they're thinking about fighting, such as like you got Pacquiao, obviously, Sean Porter. Danny Garcia might want a rematch if you can count that. But honestly, we all know what fight to see. We all know what the fight is that we want to see. It's Spence versus Crawford. Yeah. So hey, look, I stop holding up, make this fight happen.
Right.
But congratulations to Errol Spence. Good luck to Danny Garcia in the future. And I'm just hoping for that fight to happen, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Congratulations to Errol Spence. Good luck to both of them. And Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence. Make that damn fight happen.